Senator Bill Cassidy, Louisiana Republican. Senator, so what should we expect to hear from President Trump?
Well, he tweeted today that the situation has stabilized. Of course, we want to know details of that. And you're reading reports that the Russians and the Turks have agreed with the Kurds for an ordered pullout and hopefully to avoid violence and persecution of the minorities there. But again, we want to see it happen. Let's see what the president has to say.
Senator, I'm not sure there's been any issue since President Trump has been in office that has angered the Republican Party more than this decision in Syria. Since then, critics like Lindsey Graham have pulled back a little bit, saying, hey, let's see what happens. And perhaps there could be a better outcome to all of this than anyone had anticipated when the news initially hit. Where did you stand on this, and where do you stand now?
I'm very concerned that we are perceived as abandoning the Kurds. It seemed as if we had, with relatively few troops, very few troops, had stabilized the situation. But Lindsey's right. If the president's been able to broker a deal where, again, the Turks are allowing an ordered withdrawal of the Kurds, and there is a transfer of prisoners from Kurds to Turks, ISIS prisoners, then that would be best of all. There's also, though, the issue of the minority populations which have been persecuted, the Assyrians, the Christian Assyrians, the Yazdi, and others. And so you also want to make sure that we haven't opened up a humanitarian crisis. But if the president's been able to pull this off, then more power to the president.
What about cynics that say, okay, we still, of course, we sent troops to Saudi Arabia. Some of these troops that were leaving Syria are going to be relocated in Iraq, that we are, in fact, still in the Middle East. And now, perhaps we'll have troops who are going to be there to secure the oil. Is this just a fact of life? It's just something that we can't avoid at this point?
It may be, Charles, that the president's merely using this as an arm to stabilize certain situations. Clearly, the Iranians are trying to pick a fight with the Saudis. They're less likely to pick a fight with us. So if our troops are there to stabilize and ultimately withdraw, that's certainly consistent with where the president has wanted us to be. I will also point out, though, that we're protecting oil not for the United States, but for the rest of the world. We're effectively self-sufficient in North America for oil and gas and natural gas resources. I think one of the tensions here is we're protecting sea lanes for oil that's being shipped to our economic competitors. And I think, again, that's why the president's been encouraging other countries to join a coalition to help protect those sea lanes. Don't put it entirely upon the U.S.
Yeah, I think that's something he's been about even as a candidate, and he's sticking to that. And I think a lot of people appreciate that. Senator, I want to kind of change course here a little bit because a lot of big things happening on Capitol Hill, including Facebook chief Mark Zuckerberg. He's already begun to testify. He's trying to sell this new digital currency. It's called Libra. Are you buying this Zuckerberg's case so far?
Well, first, Mark Zuckerberg has zero credibility. He's got a great product, Facebook. Everybody acknowledges that. But he has zero credibility. And I say that not as a criticism, but as an observation. And so any cryptocurrency, which obviously has been used, as people know, has been used for money laundering, for capital flight and other things, it's beyond the reach of traditional scrutiny, would be very scrutinized. Is this one more area in which Facebook is going into, which may be to the detriment of society at large? Zuckerberg knows he has this. I'm not doing anything other than pointing out that which is obvious to everyone.
It's so ironic. We had Governor Huckabee on earlier, and Maxine Waters said, essentially echoed those same sentiments, that he was untrustworthy. And I think we had a Fox News alert, Fox Business alert, first time that Mike Huckabee and Maxine Waters were on the same page. I think there are some interesting bedfellows with respect to this anxiety associated with Facebook, with 2 billion users also having their own currency and ability to move monies, not just in this country, but around the world. You've got Jay Powell from the Federal Reserve who's anxious. President Trump has expressed reservations, Maxine Waters, yourself. But everyone keeps saying, ultimately, something like this is going to happen, that it is inevitable.
Well, one thing I've been concerned about is trade-based money laundering, the means by which transnational criminal organizations move billions of dollars around the globe. One estimate is that $1.2 trillion is moving around the globe beyond regulators in whatever country it's occurring, $267 billion here in the U.S. And cryptocurrency has the role in that if you are selling drugs between China and the United States, you go on the dark web, you pay with cryptocurrency that is beyond the reach of law enforcement to track that transaction. But that transaction is very much part of drugs coming to our United States and people dying from overdoses. So there's a very practical law enforcement aspect to this, and we need to be comforted by that more than Mark Zuckerberg's reassurances.
Of course, the statement laced with some political commentary, some insinuations, if you will. He talked about the underclass being underserved in our banking system, 14 million Americans without access to a bank account, and suggesting we know these are the big issues. These are going to be the kind of issues that resonate in 2020. So how does Congress, and more particularly, how does the Republican Party say to this country, we're going to take care of that?
Well, a couple things. I think I'm a little skeptical that Libra, a cryptocurrency formed by Facebook, is going to be the answer to that problem. On the other hand, there are market-based solutions. And so now if my wife wishes to tip somebody, she may be, I think it's Vimo or Venmo. She just does a Venmo and sends them some money. And so the market is responding to that. In Kenya, there's a way in which people are able to transact without banks being involved, again, using their cell phones. So I think we'll have solutions to that do emerge, and that's the wonderful thing about technology. It finds solutions to things which seem intractable.
Sir, I want to shift gears with you again, talk about drug prices. Now, you just announced that you saved taxpayers $3.1 billion at the pharmacy. How are you getting this message out there, and how did you save people that much money?
You know, part of the problem, Charles, is that if Congress accomplishes something, nobody reports it. So thank you for mentioning that. We talk about impeachment, we talk about dysfunction, but not about saving taxpayers $3.1 billion. We're closing a loophole that some pharmaceutical manufacturers used to avoid paying refunds to Medicaid programs. Not at the pharmacy counter, but definitely at the state government and federal government financing level. We just have to talk about the need to lower drug costs. It is one thing that unites Republicans and Democrats. The president's all about it. How can we get that message out? More importantly, get the political momentum that we can get this legislation passed, even in an atmosphere dominated by discussions about impeachment.
Senator Cassidy, congratulations and thank you so much. You covered a lot. We appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you, Charles.